Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahamsa Dravida Prabhu Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Dravida Acharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. This light on all the way? Just make sure. Okay, we'll be reading from page 194 today. 194? No? In the book. Oh, don't put that on the floor. Don't put it on the floor. Suresh, take that. Okay, she'll take it. Yeah, she can start. I'm sorry, I don't know what's Spanish for 194. 1, 9, 4. That's the page. He'll help you. Get around page 194. Some of the classes in Sanskrit, it's not even. Oh, really? Oh, sorry about that. You have a Spanish Bhagavad Gita?
I have one at home.
Oh, you have some? All right, we'll try to help you. Okay, let's proceed. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of May 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge. We're going to do text 9 again. And it's at the top of page 194. I know, we did it last night. We're going to do it again tonight. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatpataha chaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti sojana. Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tattvataha. Chaktva deham punar janma. Naiti mam eti sorjuna. Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tattvataha. Chaktva deham punar janma. Naiti mam eti sorjuna. Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tattvataha. Chaktva deham punar janma. Naiti mam eti sorjuna. Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti tattvataha. Chaktva deham punar janma. Naiti mam eti sorjuna. Word by word meanings. Janma, birth, karma, work, cha, also, may, of mine. Divyam, transcendental. Evam, like this, yaha, anyone who, veti, knows, tattvataha, in reality. Chaktva, leaving aside, deham, this body. Punaha, again, janma, birth, na, never, eti, does attain. Mam, unto me, eti, does attain. Saha, he, Arjun, O Arjun. Translation, Lord Krishna says to Arjun, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjun. Purport. The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the Lord, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita 533, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Advaitam achyutam anadi mananta rupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers. As stated in the Vedas, the Purusha Bodhini Upanishad, Eko Devo Nitya Lila Nurakto Bhakta Vyapi Ridhyantaratma. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms in relationships with his unalloyed devotees. This Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Gita personally by the Lord. He who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not waste time in philosophical speculations, attains the highest perfectional stage of liberation. Time out. Excuse me. That door has to be pulled shut. Hopefully it'll be fixed tomorrow. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Yeah, the closer is broken. Thank you. Okay, where was I? Okay.
195.
Yeah, first paragraph. Simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can, without a doubt, attain liberation. The Vedic version, Tattvam Asi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme, or who says unto the Lord, "You are the same Supreme Brahman," the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly. and consequently his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection, and this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Tameva vidadvati mrityumeti nanyak panta vidyate yanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And there is no other way to achieve this perfection. The Shvetashvatara Upanishad 3.8. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance, and consequently he will not attain salvation simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey or by interpreting the Bhagavad Gita according to mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed-up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So as I mentioned yesterday, and that's why we're reading it again. Welcome, Hare Krishna. This verse is one of the most quoted by Srila Prabhupada amongst all the Bhagavad Gita verses. And one of the reasons he quotes it is to show how simple it is, really, to attain liberation. If you just look, if one who knows in truth, the tattvataha is important. In reality, the divine quality or the transcendental nature of my birth and activities doesn't take birth again. When you leave this body, it's your last death and you go back to Godhead. Now, how can that be attained? Well, Prabhupada deals with several things in this purport. First, he talks about those who don't focus on the personality of Godhead, but rather on the impersonal light, the Brahma Jyoti. These are spoken of in this verse that Prabhupada would often quote. Yein yeda vindaksha vimuktamaninas. This is spoken by the demigods while Krishna is still in the womb. They come in secretly into that dungeon where Devaki is pregnant with Krishna. And they offer these prayers, and this is the most famous one. So they're saying, besides the devotees, there are others. Oh, lotus-eyed Lord, they're praying to Krishna, who are not your devotees, don't worship you. Vimuktamaninas. And although they may rise up to the Brahman Jyoti, the Brahman platform, Brahma Bhuta, by severe austerities, because they're averse to serving your lotus feet, their intelligence is impure, abhishuddha buddhaya. And therefore, eventually, they come back down again. And it makes perfect sense, because the desire for liberation is really an exaggerated but mundane desire. The desire of the liberation simply means, I really don't want to experience birth, old age, and disease, and death again. And so how can that be accomplished? Well, by separating the soul from the body, by doing those things which will ensure that you don't take another body. So that means to repress or somehow expunge all of the latent desires that you have that are located, as explained in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, within the senses, within the mind, within the intelligence. So this process of negation, it's really a process of negation, and even one may say repression. And that's why it says kutrena. Kutrena, you can almost hear it in the Sanskrit, means severe austerities, to try to withdraw the senses from the sense objects, and to somehow, by the force of one's will and intelligence, to expunge any latent desires that might be, haunting you, so that you're completely free of material desire. And all you want is just to exist without a form, without activities, without any thoughts, in the pure consciousness, the light of Brahma Jyoti. Now for bhaktas, this sounds pretty hellish, doesn't it? And indeed there's a verse like that, Kaivalyam Narakayati, This is a verse written by Prabodhananda Saraswati in his Chaitanya Chandramrita. And he's describing that for those who have experienced or who have been empowered by the sidelong glance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and therefore have prema bhakti in their heart for Krishna, and want nothing less than to be engaged in Krishna's service with all of their senses and their mind and their intelligence. It's the opposite of impersonalism. It means superpersonalism, for yourself and in relation to Krishna. For them, kaivalya, impersonal merging into the oneness, is just like going to hell. Worse than going to hell. Because, think about it. What is the essence of bhakti? Bhakti yoga. Linking to the Supreme Lord through loving devotion, love of God, with the essence of all religion. Think about the word religion for a minute. Religion means to tie again to God, right? Ligio means a rope, like your ligament. And religion means to again link up to God. That's what we're all about. So bhakti yoga is the means of linking to God in the most efficacious way, where God will reveal himself in his completeness as the supreme, all-loving person in every sense of the word, with the form, qualities, pastimes, and relationships and everything. So that's but the impersonalists, they want liberation. They don't want bhakti. Their motivation is really out of fear. It's fear of death, fear of birth, fear of all the pains that have to do with material life. So that doesn't have to do with understanding Krishna's activities and pastimes. They want to forget about that. They think that that's ultimately an illusion. That's part of Maya. That the Brahmajyoti, when it's covered by Maya, it appears in the form of God, of so-called form of God. It may be real, but it's not the original. So this verse says, Adu Kuchena Parang Padam, a few may, by this severe austerities, just try to imagine what it would be to try to practice spiritual life with no holy name, no kirtan, no prasadam. Anytime you enjoy eating, that's a fall down. You can't eat any palatable thing, Try to eat as plain, unspiced khichdi for the rest of your life, And no deities, who can imagine it? See how hellish it is? That's really where the impersonal is going, to the nothingness. In Buddhism, Buddhism, and Mayavad is very close. So they say, Adhu Kuchena Padam Padang, they may a few rise up to the Brahmajyoti by their will, to the Brahman platform. But Patantyadho, they fall down again. Because anadrita yushmat angraya, they were averse to worshipping your lotus feet. So that's why it's only a partial, and they run the risk of returning to this material world. And the Bhagavad says it's a very high risk. And even if they stay merged, that's not the all-encompassing, ever-increasing, blissful platform that we're looking for. It is said that sense gratification happiness, the highest, the most intense you can think of, is nothing but a drop of water in the ocean of Brahmananda, which is the impersonal realization. And Brahmananda is like a drop of water in the ocean of Premananda, which is what we're aiming for. So you can see the difference. So Krishna appears in all different kinds of forms, especially in Bhagavad Gita and in Bhakti Yoga. We want to focus on that original form. Yesterday I was talking about, I cited a line of a verse in the first canto, which is said to be by our acharyas, by Jiva Goswami, the Paribhasa Sutra. There's something called like an essential phrase or verse that's the foundation of the whole book. So this is the foundation of the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, And basically it's a statement that Krishna is God. Krishna is Bhagavan. Ehite chanktakala punksa Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. If you can't remember a whole verse, just remember that 1/4 of a verse. Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is Bhagavan himself. Bhagavan means the manifestation of the Lord who's full with all of the opulences. Infinite beauty, infinite wealth, knowledge, strength, fame, and detachment, vairagya. He's so full in himself that he doesn't need anything else. So how is it that he wants to relate to all these devotees in Vrindavan? What's the point? Why doesn't he just go into samadhi and be Atmarama? Because rasa vaisa, it is said that Krishna lives for rasa. In other words, if you were God, what would you want to do? Would you want to be the boss of everyone all the time? You think that's fun? To live, that's a psychological problem. You want to have an infinite variety of meaningful, deep, loving relationships. That's really what it's all about. And that's what makes this world go round. Unfortunately, these are just shadows of the real thing. And that's why it's so frustrating. I mean, the mother's love for the child, this is the purest love we have in the world. And Prabhupada explained, the closest thing to completely selfless. The child knows nothing but the mother, but doesn't know it is a mother at first. It's just like warmth, it's a source of love and affection, And the mother, if the child is happy and healthy and gives a little smile with no teeth, a day is made, right? That's what she lives for. And if the child has a little fever, oh my God, take it to the doctor, complete anxiety. That's there in Krishna. When Krishna starts walking, the most delightful pastimes are the ones in Vrindavan because they're the most human-like. So Krishna starts walking. First they start crawling. Krishna and Balaram together, in the courtyard. Prabhupada quotes a verse twice in one purport in the space of 2 paragraphs. It's the only place in the whole Bhagavatam he does. And he's quoting a verse about the glories of Nanda Maharaj as opposed to those who worship the Brahmajyoti or after liberation. Shrutamapade smritamatade bharatamane bhajantu bhagavadgita ahamiyanandam vande yasyalinde padam brahma. So he says, some worship the Shrutis. Some worship the Smritis. It's okay. Did you need to go? You're welcome to stay. But I know it's hard because you don't understand. Did you think that it was going to be bilingual?
I do not understand.
Anyway, if you stay a few more minutes till 8:15, we're going to have a nice ceremony. You'll see the deities and we'll chant Hare Krishna. And you can learn it in 1 minute. It's this mantra here.
See?
That you know, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna in Brazil.
Brazil, you come from Brazil. So it's not even Spanish, Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Yeah. French too?
French.
No. Oh, okay. Anyway, we're sorry we can't communicate so well. But if you stay, you'll have a nice experience with the deities. So you're welcome to stay. I guess you are staying. She doesn't know. Anyway, stay or go, whatever. Yeah, yes. Right here.
Pero la segunda vez que yo vengo acá. Segunda.
Anyway, you do what you have to do. We're going to continue with the class.
Tengo que irme.
Okay, if you have to go,
Gracias.
you're welcome. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. All right.
Krishna. Hare Hare.
Very good. Your evening was complete. You chanted the mantra. Hare. All right, back to our verse. Shrutamapade, smritamatade, bharatam. That's not, no one knows what that means either. So, what it means is, some worship the Shrutis, the Vedas and the Vedanta, being afraid of birth and death. Shrutamapade, smritamatade. Some worship the Smritis, like the Puranas and things. And some worship the Mahabharata, Idahasas. Shrutamapade, smritamatade, bharatamanye bhajantu bhavabhita, being afraid of birth and death, out of fear. But I'm not doing that. Ahamiyanandam vande, I bow down to Nanda Maharaj, in whose courtyard the Supreme Brahman is crawling. See? In other words, I don't have to, go through all of this thing, study all these literatures and meditate on the white light. I'm going to worship Nanda Maharaj, And there's the Supreme Brahman in personal form, the most delightful form, as a little baby crawling in his yard. So the devotees try to understand this mystery, how the Supreme Controller, the source of everything, he who knows past, present, and future, the Supreme God that appears in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, has taken this form of a little child who is described in the 10th canto. He's crawling, starting to crawl, and they don't know so much, they're pretending not to know. And they go after some mother, some woman who's walking, and they think it's his mother. When they think it's not the mother, they're afraid and they crawl back to the mother. Just like ordinary children. And then when they begin walking, of course they don't just walk, then they run, right? And the mothers are in anxiety. Maybe the child will be hurt by some animal. Maybe its feet will be pricked by a thorn or some fire or something. And so they get absorbed in the ecstasy of maternal affection, transcendental maternal affection. This is in the Bhagavad. So this is way beyond the conception of any of the materialists, what to speak of the empiric philosophers. It doesn't compute. They have to be convinced that all of this complex reality that we call the macro and the micro machines and everything didn't just come about by chance. They've convinced themselves that there's no intelligence behind it, there's no person behind it, which is the most absurd thing you can imagine. But anyway, so back to this purport. So the one Supreme Godhead is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms in relationship with his unalloyed devotees. So understanding why Krishna takes birth, when he takes birth, how he takes birth, which he just explained in a few verses before, and what his karma is. Karma is just his activities or pastimes. The divine nature of his birth and the divine nature of his pastimes. Understanding these in truth, it can only be done by devotional service, because that's only revealed. Krishna only reveals to that to his sincere devotees. He, according to our actual surrender and our sincere service, proportionally he reveals the real truth behind his activities and his pastimes. So if one can understand them in truth, it means that you've achieved the grace of the Lord, and then liberation is assured. Now one should know just where liberation fits in terms of bhakti yoga, because it's a highly touted and desired end for any transcendentalist. I mean, this is everybody in India, practically, those who are at least respecting the Vedas and so forth, will see. Well, this is a holy grail. Why do 100 million people or more go to the Mahakumbh Mela every 12 years in Allahabad? Many of them have some idea that, we'll get liberation if we can take bath at that proper time. We're assured of liberation. So it's something that's highly desired by anybody who looks at the reality of what material life is. In the highly artificial and technologized West, whether it's Europe or here, Australia, countries that we have this illusion that we've conquered over nature, and that eventually, they even talk about, you can live so many more years now, and But the hospitals, I used to work in a hospital, the places where these things are hidden away, where they we don't have people dying on the street here. This is one of the reasons why all these homeless people walking around is such a disturbance. Because it's reminding you that life is precarious. I could be there. It's a dose of reality. But in India, traditionally, people are very realistic about it. Death is, disease is around you. Your life is precarious. So anyway, the tradition is that somehow you want to work toward liberation, mukti. But if you take up bhakti, mukti goes into the background. Now this is a very interesting idea, because Srila Prabhupada so often he preached on the basis of working toward mukti. He didn't call it mukti. But right here, this is in the 4th chapter, and here's talk about one comes to me. But in other words, you don't take birth again. That's mukti. And there's many places in the Gita where it's talking about you never return, right? There's not so much about attaining, the different rasas and so many things. That's not there in the Gita. So the basic impetus that we have should be twofold. One is that we should take a very realistic view of what material life is. It's a hopeless proposition for achieving any peace or happiness, lasting peace and happiness. It's just not possible. If you don't do anything, if you just live an ordinary life with no big philosophical considerations, so eventually you'll get old and die. You get two choices. You can die prematurely, or you can get old and die. But one way or another, all your plans, all your relationships, everything you built up is going to be ripped away. Mrityu sarvaharas chaham, Krishna says, as death I take it all away. And then, most people convince themselves, many people convince, well, there's no afterlife. If you just have your faith in science, material science, there's no question of that. We don't see it. We don't see any afterlife. That's just a tale that people tell themselves so they can get through life. We're going to be realistic and recognize it. When you're dead, you're dead. Isn't that most of the people that believe like that, right? And what's the consequence of that philosophy? Hedonism, logically. Better enjoy as much as you can, as quick as you can. And that's one of the reasons why, that's the way I believe when I grew up. Luckily, I didn't get too deep into drugs and things, which are so self-destructive. But that's the reason for it. When you remove any larger conception of life after death, or even just going to heaven or something, living a moral life, what are you left with? Charvak Muni. It's not like a new philosophy. You ever hear of Charvak Muni? Charvak Muni is a Vedic philosopher who was total atheist, and basically hedonism. He says, beg, borrow, steal, but get ghee. If you can get ghee, then you can cook up some nice pakoras and you can enjoy life. And when you're dead, you're dead. Try to enjoy as much as possible. Charvak Muni. It's not a new philosophy. And all these demons, Hiranyakashipu and Kamsa, they may come out with some highfalutin philosophy sometimes, like the Hiranyakashipu Gita. You ever see that? When Hiranyaksha was killed and his wives were all lamenting, he spoke right out of the 2nd chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Well, the soul is eternal, and don't lament like that. But he didn't live that way. He didn't live in such a way that he was worried about the next life. He lived in a way he was trying to kill God and kill the conception of God. So this is precisely what this verse is about. If you approach in the proper way, through the proper channels, the realized soul and the proper literature, you can and you actually engage in devotional service, you can understand Krishna's birth and activities in truth. And then you won't have to come back again. But really that's just the beginning. For bhaktas, we realize that mukti is a byproduct. What did Lord Chaitanya say? We can all chant together. Nadanang najanang nasundari kavitang vajagadish kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatar bhakti rahoitakidve. We really need to learn the Shikshastra. Could you put it on your list? Okay. So Lord Chaitanya is teaching us how to pray. He's teaching us the mentality of a real bhakta. A real devotee does not pray for wealth, whereas someone can go to church and pray for wealth. My mortgage is due, my rent is due. Please help me, my Lord. That's not bhakti. That's kaitava dharma. So najanam, no, I'm not praying for wealth, for followers, for a beautiful spouse, for great facility of knowledge, material knowledge, kavitam. I'm not even praying for liberation. Mama janmani janmani shuri. As soon as you say janmani janmani, it means birth after birth. So what are you praying for? Bhakti ahoituki bhakti unto you. Unmotivated, with no material motivation. Then what's the motivation if it's not material? Spiritual. Love. That I'll simply serve you out of love. That's what he's praying for. So where does mukti come in? Mukti comes in as a byproduct. This wonderful verse by Bhuvamangal Thakur in his Krishna Karnamrita. He says, how's it go? Forgetting the verse. But he's saying that if one serves you purely, my Lord, then he'll get the result of that, which is Kaishur, a vision of your beautiful Kaishur form. And as far as mukti concerns, mukti swayam mukulitanjali tevatesman. Mukti personified is waiting at the door with her folded hands in this mudra, which means how can I serve you? You see? And whatever I need of dharma, artha, and kama, the other three of the four standard goals, they're also with her. We need to have a little artha, some little prasadam, something, in order to live. Well, that's also there. But I'm not concerned about it. Mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevatesman. So the idea is that mukti follows in the train of bhakti. It's a byproduct. It's not something you have to worry about. And so if we simply focus on understanding Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and truth, then everything comes. And the way to understand those and in truth is to engage in devotional service, the practical processes of devotional service, which includes study of the Shastra, but so many other things, chanting of the holy name, doing practical services. Then Krishna reveals the real nature of his birth and activities. Okay, any questions? Very important verse. Yes?
So you're speaking about kind of understanding the reality of real life. And I was just reading this concept of it where he's saying something.
What happened to our mic? Okay, go ahead. He's got it. No, keep going. We'll repeat.
Not because there is satisfaction, but because
pain.
Blood comes.
Pain now.
But in his when he was giving his account of this memory, he said he had stopped. He didn't hear the rest of what Prabhupada was saying. So anyway, do you think you could give a small purport on that piece that Prabhupada just said?
About how material life is was it an infection, he said?
Material life is an infection. So you scratch, and there's some satisfaction. You scratch some more, there's still some satisfaction. You scratch again, and then you stop, not because there's satisfaction, but because there's pleasure.
Yeah, well, material life, I mean, what that sounds like is it's material desire, which is the impetus for material life. It's then you want to satisfy. There's some desire, whether it is sex life or whatever it may be. So, if you're not, you don't have any higher knowledge, or you're not associating with those who are practicing some kind of self-control, then the natural thing, especially in today's society, is to try to satisfy that desire. The whole consumerist world that we live in is based on filling you with all kinds of desires that you then have to work very hard to fulfill, and then pay off the credit card, and it's all that exploitation. But the key is that you have to keep desiring newer and newer things, isn't it? So if you buy it or you get it, right, and you experience it, but then what happens is you want to experience it again. As soon as you have some material sense pleasure in this world, it plants a desire seed in your heart. I give the example of myself. I used to be really into chocolate. Who wasn't? When I was a kid, chocolate kisses, Hershey bars, chocolate milk, chocolate ice cream. Not so unusual, right? So there was a certain point where I had my first chocolate. I don't know, I can't remember that one, but it happened. And then, it was pretty good, and let's have it again. Now, I never got to the point where I got really fat and we just couldn't have any more, But the point is that it plants a certain desire seed. And so that's what the itch is. The itch is, I want something. And then if you're able to secure that thing, if it's your karma, then you can satisfy it. And then after some time, there's another desire. It's just like drugs. But actually every sense gratification is a drug. So you're scratching, it's itching, you're scratching, itching, you're scratching. But then at a certain point, the suffering comes from that. It's not news. There's an obesity epidemic in not just in the West, even in the third world, where nobody's eating healthily and whatever. So what is that caused by? It's exactly this. People are eating rich foods and sitting down and watching the internet or whatever. Not enough exercise, too many calories produces obesity. Then all kinds of health problems come, right? So that's the blood coming. It's just the result, and it's right here in the Bhagavad Gita. Yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkha yona evate. The sangsparjita bhoga means the touch, the contact of the senses with the sense object. That's sangsparjita bhoga, pleasure. In the end, produces misery. That's the source of your dukkha. Dukkha yona evate. The wise don't take pleasure because it has a beginning and an end. We just read the verse about Dhruva, right? Where Dhruva was this whole list of things, and he's saying he realized that all of that is bound by time, is caused by time, and is destroyed by time. It said is a result of Maya, and therefore he renounced from it. But really, the wise, that anything that's bound by time is just a trap for you. It's some pleasure that has a beginning and an end. And one doesn't have a beginning and an end. All the sense pleasures have a beginning and end. There have to be a limit because your senses are limited, right? So that's the itch. When you scratch, it's right in the third chapter. It's kama esha krodesha rajogana samudbhaha. That this is the reason that we're impelled to act against our own best interests by material desire, kama, headed by sex desire, but others also. And it covers your knowledge. Avitam jnanam etena covers knowledge of the knower of ourselves. Kama rupena dushpurena nalena cha. It's never satisfied and it burns like fire. This is the nature of material desire. So how to get out of this trap? Because if your knowledge is completely covered, you're helpless, right? You need somebody to penetrate that fog. And not only that, but to give you a taste, give you an experience of a different kind of pleasure that is then, you see the alternative. And that's where the chanting comes in. Without any much knowledge of the philosophy or any knowledge of the philosophy, if you just come to the point of chanting a little bit, that gives you another inkling, another taste of another kind of pleasure that is not material, that doesn't end, or you get to the point where it doesn't have to end. And it doesn't produce any bad side effect. No bad side effect. I mean, I've been chanting somehow, for 46 years. It's all good. No bad side effects. The good side effects is I avoided so many things. The AIDS epidemic, the drug epidemic, so many things. Where my contemporaries, some of them, many of them were casualties of that for one reason, to one degree or another. Because the pleasure is not based on burning out your senses. It's directly the soul contacting the Supreme Soul. That's what it means, ever increasing, ever expanding bliss. Now, I'm not at that point of ever expanding bliss, but I can definitely say from my own experience that there's no need for it to decrease. If you keep following, yet your material senses are going to decrease and everything, but your experience of Hare Krishna doesn't have to. In fact, it can increase because there's not so much distraction. So that's precisely the kind of itch we want to scratch, because it never comes to the point of the blood flowing. It never comes to the point of the pain. But it requires determination to get past the point of, because there's so much conditioning. And that part is a little painful. That's called tapasya. But really, bhakti yoga is minimal tapasya. compared to these poor impersonalists who are trying to transcend with no holy name, no prasadam, no associate. It's crazy. Yeah. All right, let's read one more. This next, you have a question, go ahead. Wait, give the mic. You got, yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yesterday, this is.
You're on the air.
I have a loud voice. Anyway.
Just hold it a little straight. Yes.
Yesterday, you commented that Krishna was transcendental, and he did not have a material body. Correct?
Correct.
So, as a baby, did he use Maya to present a material body?
Yeah, Yoga Maya.
Yoga Maya.
Yoga
So
Maya.
he did that throughout most of his earthly
Through all the Leela, the early Leela.
existence. Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the basic principles of understanding Krishna Leela, is that Krishna appears to be an ordinary child, and therefore the gopis, the elder gopis as well as the young gopis and his friends and everybody else can relate to him on that basis. Whereas even such great devotees as Kunti and Devaki, they knew he's God. In Kunti's prayers, when the famous prayers in the first canto, Namasye Purusham Tvardyam Ishwaram Pakate Padam Alaksham Savabhutanam Antar Bahardavastitam. This is her first prayer. Immediately she says, Purusham Tvardyam, you are the original person. In other words, she's seeing him as God. So she didn't have as great a position and as blessing as Yashoda did. And even Devaki, she also knew, because as soon as he appears with 4 arms. He's Narayan. So she knew. But there's also, there's kind of a tension there, because she has some motherly feelings also, which Krishna tries to evoke. When he finally kills Kamsa, Devaki was there, Vasudeva, they were in shackles, whatever, but they knew. And so he appears before them, but he sees that Vasudeva and Devaki, Balaram and Krishna, that they're relating to them as God. There's this all awe and everything. So he wants to destroy that. He wants to get some kind of a maternal relationship going, So I forget what he does. He bows down to them, he apologizes, and all of these different things, in other words. But for Yashoda, it's all maternal. She's at a more advanced level. The intensity of the love, the purity of the love is there. And when she has an inkling that he's God, when he shows the whole universe in his mouth, so she says, oh my God, I thought that he was the son of Nanda and that I was his mother. And now I see, Krishna doesn't like that, so he then puts the curtain of Yoga Maya again. And she's back to this, chastising him. Why don't you behave yourself? So it's there's the whole aspect of Krishna as God and the controlling and the creating and all of that business. That's a very important understanding. But beyond all of that, which is really where we're aiming, is to be able to relate to Krishna in a very personal way, and he'll allow us to do that if we are pure, according to our purity. And then he'll cover, his divinity, so that what's left is the sweetness of the relationship. So it's a mysterious thing. It's not and in this next verse, which we won't have time to read tonight, this is another very important verse, which is Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the raga and the bhaya and the krodha, these are impediments to understanding Krishna. The raga, just think of it as material desire. And most of the people, as in this age especially, it's a big impediment. Just like we had our Ratha Yatra, and every year we go down there, and I think we're the last float, we call it a float in the parade. There's a little parade, So each year there's these kids. They look like 12, 11, 12, 13, and they're part of a big band. They all wear these yellow shirts, I think they're from school, and they got their trombones with them and then some drums, and they start warming up, But then we have to stand around. So they're right standing. We're going at it with our kirtan, for like 45 minutes. And there's Balaram and Jagannath and Subhadra, right in front of them. And we're banging away and playing a drum and chanting. And they're looking at us, what's all this about? What do you guys, we don't play unless we have to. As we're told to, they're not spontaneously attracted. But you just keep going and going and going. You're not actually parading anywhere. So I was just thinking how, even though they don't know anything about us, and I don't know what box they're putting us in, still it's a great benefit to them just to hear the chanting for that long. It's like it's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, the 6th canto, even just to hear the holy name one time gives you liberation. So they were liberated for a while, But the problem is the fan is still running, and so they go back into it. But still, they tremendously benefited. So the devotee sees it. We're operating on a different criterion of what success is and what reality is. So tomorrow or Monday, we'll get into this verse. And the raga, this prevents the materialists. The bhaya, this prevents the mayavadis, the impersonalists. I mentioned now, their motive is fear of birth and death, So they think any form you have must be material. Our form is certainly an anchor, right? So we don't want to have any form. They throw out the baby with the bathwater. They don't think that there could be spiritual form, you see, because ultimately they're envious of God. And the krodha, the anger, is what the voidists are into. They've been cheated by so many different philosophers that think nothing is true. The ultimate reality is just a void, or it doesn't exist, which is also blocks you from bhakti. So one has to give up. Vita means without, freed from raga bhaya krodha, manmaya mamapashada, those who worship me and become purified and they attain love for me. Okay, I've got a low battery and we got 2 minutes, so we'll have a little poem, ending with something sweet. You ready? Okay. This is a verse that I think I was shared before I left, but it's not so famous. This is Brahma's reaction when he heard the flute of Krishna. He's sitting on his swan. He's kind of in a corner of Vrindavan. Ashtabi Shuttaputakaya Navavaya Navaka Kalin Kalayan Shatatita Mukto Madara Prishte Muhur Lutati. Lord Brahma is the gravest soul, completely self-controlled. An ocean of composure, he's a wonder to behold. But when he hears Govinda's flute produce its maddening sound, he loses it, and on his swan he starts to roll around. Did you ever hear that one before? No. Okay. Hare Krishna. So, and we'll end with a prayer of Queen Kunti. Tvaime ananya vishaya mati madhupate sakrit ratamudbhatar gange baugamadhanvati. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.